I'm Dr Cornwall, and this is the Entrepreneurial Mind. Today our guest is Jay Myers with Interactive Solutions. We'll be back to talk with Jay after this.
Talkapolis programming is sponsored in part by the Vane Center, now celebrating 10 years service in Nashville, Tennessee.
Welcome, Jay.
Appreciate it, Jeff. Thank you for having me on the show.
Good to see you as always.
Appreciate it.
So let's start by talking a little bit about your company. You're in video conferencing and a fairly traditional business when it comes to that whole sphere. Talk a little bit of how you got into that and how that company's evolved over time, because the world has changed around you just a bit since you got started.
It has, and it's funny, I'm in my 24th year, Jeff, in video conferencing, so I'm kind of early adopter.
Right.
But it has changed, and it's changed to the point that where it used to be sort of a mystique behind the technology.
So you used to have an office where people would go and they'd sit down in front of your cameras and go to another feed where you had other cameras.
Exactly. And you had to have an engineer set up the room for you and all these special microphones and everything. And today, you and I both know you can take your iPhone and have a call to China or someplace, wherever, from a Google Hangout call to a Zoom to whatever else you want to. So it's really interesting and very gratifying after all these years to see the technology grow from just this very, sort of boutique feel to it and very mysterious to now, gosh, kids are using video conferencing on a daily basis.
So how did you keep up with that change over time? I mean, that's a good lesson for anybody in a technical space is really understanding how to not let the world pass you by, because a lot of people, that's happened to their businesses.
Well, see the gray hair, Jeff, that's part of it. But the other part is that I've been very fortunate that I have hired some really good young people. And in fact, part of the thing I talked about in my new book was that hiring millennials that could keep up with this stuff.
Right.
That have the DNA to be able to keep up with it, read about it on a daily basis, offer suggestions about things we need to get into, and not be tied to the past that unfortunately some people that look like me are.
Right.
And so that's been a big part of our success formula.
Now, early on, people paid you because you controlled the technology, you controlled the feed, you controlled everything. How have you evolved to stay relevant in terms of generating revenues from this when you, as you say, people can just do it from a handheld now?
Well, the thing we've been able to find out about it, and again, I'm going to shamelessly promote my new book, Hitting the Curveballs, is that we found some really neat niches and ones that were important to people, meaningful, that things like telemedicine, where the doctors can set up the equipment in these clinics to be able to remotely diagnose patients, ear, nose, throat, cardio kind of things from hundreds of miles away, so that we were subject matter expert in something that had a direct return on investment, reimbursements for those visits. Today, a telemedicine visit looks just like if it's in-person type of visit and everything. So there's a business angle there. Then, as you know, in the state of Tennessee and many other states that we cover, distance education, where you're able to offer classes like the University in Belmont and a number of people through the state that are challenged by having budgets where they can't hire enough instructors for every possible course.
Right.
They're using our technology to be able to teach the students remotely and not have to hire as many instructors. So we found these niches that are meaningful, that have a return on investment. That's really been our key.
So, what you're doing with education, where do you see that heading? Because higher ed is kind of in an interesting state right now. And what do you see happening in that industry, and how are you going to be a player and be relevant within that industry going forward?
Well, I think it is changing pretty rapidly. So some of the things that we're getting into now, recording of some of those classes, and then look at the devices. And
so you're getting into the MOOC business, so to speak.
Correct. Exactly, and then also some of the services-based type of things, so that we can take like the calls that are being transmitted to these various remote campuses, and rather than being tied to our profitability being only in that hardware, we're going to route those calls, cloud-based solutions and otherwise, within our services model and our NOC that we see in our future, to be able to have that network operations center to manage those calls and support those frankly, on a daily basis, and we're looking at right now for a new product 24/7.
So has the business gotten to be more labor intensive or less as the technology's evolved?
More in many cases.
Yeah,
in the
it
sense
sounds like
of
it
the
would be
service
because
end
it's
of
so personalized and so idiosyncratic to a specific situation.
Right. It has become more service intensive, but which is kind of, I guess, a double-edged sword there, because you look at it from one standpoint, you have to have more people. On the other side, as you and I both know, there's more profitability in that, and the value of the company goes up as we grow our revenue on that side of the business.
So what do you see the future for a company like yours? Where do you think you'll be in 5 or 10 years?
Well, one thing we're trying to do, particularly here in Nashville, since I have my office here for over 9 years, is really focus on healthcare.
Right.
We see healthcare technologies being our future. We see some things where we're going to be doing more with software. We have a software portal we're working with right now to be able to offer the customer not just the hardware, where you've got the consults being done, but at the front end to be able to data entry, EMR,
Right.
electronic medical records. Also, besides doing the consult after you've entered the data, and return, create a bill, and be a part of their daily business, as opposed to kind of being sitting on the sidelines a little bit.
So you're actually working towards integration with that whole system?
Yes, sir. We sure are.
So you've got all sorts of new partners here in Nashville now, don't you?
We do.
Yeah.
And we actually we're going international with a partner for a developer in Mumbai, and we're excited about that. So it's an interesting future. We're excited about it.
So I got to ask before we close here, how did you get into the book writing business? Because you've handed me 2 or 3 books over the years now.
I sure have, and I appreciate your support on those, by the way, and speaking to your classes and
Sure.
everything. You know, when I was deciding to write the book, Hitting the Curveballs, it was all about, Jeff, getting past some very difficult times. And I'll make this brief, but in the summer of 2007, in a 30-day period, I lost 80% of my sales team. I had an employee die, a good friend die, and my wife got breast cancer, all in 30 days. And when we managed to work through those experiences and challenges, it struck me that this story may be, just for that part of it, something to kind of remember, but then it's what we did after that. And that happened in 2007, and in 4 years, from 2007 to the end of 11, during that annoying thing you may have heard about called the Great Recession,
Yeah, there's something in there, yeah.
we went from $11 to $25 million in sales.
But you stumbled even before 08
We did
hit.
before, yeah, so we've had a bunch of challenges, but that 4-year period of time I thought was so interesting.
Yeah.
It's not so much, just companies around Nashville have done some great things here in the last few years and whatever. I just thought the fact that we got knocked down so far with all those things, and then the recession on top of that, and we more than doubled business. I wanted to share that with the readers and say, you know what? We can do it. You can too.
That's a great lesson. It's a great lesson. Jay, it's always good to see you. Thanks for
You
coming
too,
in.
Jeff. Thank you. Appreciate being on the show.
All
Thank
right,
you.
Take care.